Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Too many people think that if someone ignores you, you have to fight for their attention. They believe that if you call one more time, send one more message, explain yourself one more time, somehow everything will change. But let me tell you something. The loudest person in the room isn't always the strongest. Sometimes the strongest person is the one who knows when to stop talking. Sometimes real power is found in the decision to remain silent. When a man starts ignoring you, your emotions will immediately tell you to react. You'll want answers. You'll want to know what changed. You'll replay every conversation in your mind, wondering if you said the wrong thing or made the wrong move. That's a natural feeling. But don't let temporary emotions make permanent mistakes. The moment you begin chasing someone who is pulling away, you've already placed them in control of your peace. That's not where your peace belongs. You have to understand something about people. When someone truly values you, they don't need to be reminded to treat you with respect. They don't accidentally forget your existence. They don't consistently ignore someone they genuinely care about. Life gets busy, yes. People have responsibilities, yes. But nobody is too busy for someone they truly don't want to lose. Effort is always a matter of priority, not convenience. Here's where most people make the mistake. The minute they feel ignored, they become louder. More texts, more phone calls, longer paragraphs, more questions. They think that increasing their effort will increase the other person's interest. But attention that has to be begged for is never genuine attention. Real connection doesn't have to be forced every single day. Now listen carefully. Silence is not about playing games. It's not about trying to manipulate someone into missing you. It's about protecting your dignity. There's a difference. When you stay silent, you're saying, I respect myself enough not to force my presence where it isn't appreciated. That's confidence. That's emotional maturity. That's knowing your value without needing someone else to confirm it. A confident person doesn't panic the moment communication changes. They observe, they pay attention to actions instead of creating excuses. Because actions never lie. Words can be rehearsed, promises can be broken, excuses can sound convincing. But consistent behavior tells the truth every single time. If someone repeatedly chooses distance, believe the choice they're making instead of the story you're hoping for. You see, silence gives people room to reveal themselves. If you constantly fill every gap with your own effort, you'll never know whether the other person would have stepped forward on their own. Sometimes you have to stop reaching just to see who's willing to reach back. That's not pride, that's wisdom. And here's another thing. Your silence gives you something even more valuable than answers. It gives you perspective. When you're constantly trying to fix a situation, your emotions become too loud to hear the truth. But when you step back, your mind becomes clearer. You begin to notice patterns you ignored before. You remember the broken promises. You recognize the one-sided effort. You stop looking at potential and start looking at reality. Don't confuse silence with weakness. Weakness is begging someone to stay after they've shown you they don't value your presence. Strength is having enough respect for yourself to walk away from confusion. Strength is understanding that your worth doesn't decrease because someone fails to recognize it. Diamonds don't lose their value because one person walks past them. Their value remains the same. A lot of people are afraid of silence because they think they'll lose the relationship. But ask yourself this. What exactly are you losing if you're the only one holding everything together? A relationship cannot survive on one person's effort forever. Love requires two people choosing each other, not one person constantly convincing the other to care. Remember this. Your silence is not punishment. It is protection. It protects your heart from unnecessary pain. It protects your confidence from constant rejection. It protects your peace from emotional chaos. And sometimes the greatest message you'll ever send isn't written in a text message or spoken in an argument. It's communicated through your absence. Because when you stop chasing, people finally have the opportunity to decide whether they are willing to come toward you on their own. If they do, you'll know their effort is genuine. If they don't, you'll also have your answer. Either way, your silence has already done something powerful. It reminded you that your value was never meant to depend on someone else's attention. A man's actions will always tell you more than his words ever can. People can say almost anything when they want to keep you around. They can promise change, make excuses that sound believable, and tell you everything you want to hear. But words are easy. They don't require sacrifice. They don't require consistency. Actions do. That's why if you truly want to know how someone feels about you, stop listening to what they say for a moment and start paying attention to what they repeatedly do. You know, One of the biggest mistakes people make is falling in love with someone's potential instead of accepting their reality. They hear beautiful promises and imagine a future that hasn't been earned yet. They believe every apology, every explanation, every "I'll do better." But weeks pass, months pass, sometimes even years pass, and nothing actually changes. The same problems keep showing up because the same actions keep repeating themselves. At some point, you have to stop asking what someone means and start looking at what they're proving. When a man genuinely values you, you don't have to wonder where you stand. You don't spend every night questioning whether he cares. You don't constantly feel like you're competing for his attention. A man who truly wants to be in your life will make room for you in his life. He may not be perfect. He may get busy. He may have stressful days, but being busy doesn't erase genuine effort. People always find time for what they truly consider important. Think about your own life. When something really matters to you, you make time for it. You don't forget it. You don't keep postponing it forever. You organize your schedule around it because it's valuable to you. Relationships work the same way. Priority is reflected through action, not through speeches. Someone who keeps saying, "I care about you," while continuously making you feel ignored is asking you to believe their words over your own experience. Never ignore what your experience is teaching you. A lot of people become trapped because they confuse chemistry with commitment. They mistake emotional moments for lasting character. They think because someone was kind one weekend, they'll always be dependable. But character isn't measured on special occasions. Character is revealed in everyday choices. It's shown in consistency. It's shown in reliability. It's shown in how someone treats you when life becomes inconvenient. Here's something I've learned. Anyone can be loving when everything is easy. Anyone can send sweet messages when they're in a good mood. Anyone can make promises during emotional conversations. But real love isn't tested during comfortable moments. It's tested during difficult ones. It's tested when misunderstandings happen. It's tested when life becomes stressful. That's when action separates sincere people from temporary people. Now, let me tell you something important. Stop making excuses for behavior that continues to hurt you. We have a tendency to explain away red flags because we're emotionally invested. We say, "He's just under pressure. He's probably tired. Maybe he's going through something." And while those things can certainly happen, temporary circumstances should not become permanent excuses. If disrespect becomes a habit, believe the habit. If inconsistency becomes normal, believe the pattern. Patterns reveal character better than isolated moments. You should never have to convince someone to consistently show basic respect. Respect isn't complicated. Caring isn't complicated. Effort isn't complicated. It may not always look perfect, but genuine effort is always visible. You don't have to search for it with a magnifying glass. It shows itself naturally because people invest in what they value. Another mistake people make is focusing too much on what someone says they feel instead of what their decisions reveal. Decisions are powerful because they require action. A man may tell you that you're important, but if he repeatedly chooses everything else before choosing you, his decisions have already spoken. A man may tell you he misses you, but if days turn into weeks without genuine effort to reconnect, his actions are giving you information that words cannot erase. You have to become comfortable accepting reality instead of fighting it. Sometimes the truth hurts because it doesn't match what we hope would happen. But reality is always a better foundation than fantasy. When you build your expectations on consistent actions instead of emotional promises, you protect your heart from unnecessary disappointment. Don't chase explanations forever. Some people will keep giving you new reasons every time they let you down. There will always be another excuse, another apology, another story about why things couldn't happen this time. But eventually, you have to ask yourself a simple question. If someone truly wanted to show up for me, wouldn't they have done it by now? That's not being cynical. That's respecting evidence over emotion. Never underestimate the value of observation. Quietly watch how someone treats you over time. Watch whether they remember the things that matter to you. Watch whether they support you when you need encouragement. Watch whether they communicate honestly instead of disappearing whenever responsibility appears. Those daily choices paint a picture that no romantic speech can replace. The strongest people don't waste years trying to force someone to become who they promised they would be. They accept what is being shown to them. They understand that love without consistent action eventually becomes empty words. And they know that protecting their peace is more important than clinging to promises that never become reality. At the end of the day, people may fool you with impressive conversations, emotional apologies, and beautiful intentions, but they can never hide the truth that their actions reveal every single day. When you learn to trust consistent behavior more than temporary words, you stop living in confusion and start making decisions that honor your own worth. One of the hardest lessons you'll ever learn in life is that you cannot make someone value you by giving them more of what they already take for granted. That's a painful truth because when we love someone, our natural instinct is to try harder. We think if we become more understanding, more patient, more available, more forgiving, they'll finally realize what they have. But let me tell you something. Chasing someone who is comfortable losing you doesn't increase your value in their eyes. In many cases, it teaches them that you'll always be there, no matter how little effort they make. When a man begins to pull away and your first reaction is to run after him, ask yourself one important question. Why am I trying so hard to keep someone who isn't trying equally hard to keep me? That question may make you uncomfortable, but sometimes growth begins with uncomfortable honesty. A healthy relationship is never built on one person constantly carrying the emotional weight while the other simply receives the benefits. People often believe that persistence is always romantic. They see movies where one person never gives up and eventually everything works out. But real life doesn't always work that way. Real love isn't about convincing someone to choose you every single day. Real love is about two people freely choosing each other without pressure, manipulation, or endless persuasion. If someone has to be constantly reminded of your worth, they may never truly recognize it. You have to understand the difference between fighting for a relationship and fighting against reality. Fighting for a relationship means two people working together through challenges. Fighting against reality means one person doing all the work while the other continues drifting away. Those are completely different situations. One creates stronger love. The other creates exhaustion. Sometimes people become addicted to the chase itself. They mistake anxiety for passion. Every delayed text message becomes a puzzle to solve. Every moment of distance becomes another opportunity to prove themselves. Before long, they spend more time trying to earn love than actually enjoying it. That's not what healthy love looks like. Love should bring peace more often than confusion. It should give you security more often than fear. Here's something you need to remember. Someone who genuinely wants to be part of your life doesn't require endless convincing. They don't need constant reminders to appreciate your presence. They naturally invest because they see your value. When effort only flows in one direction, eventually that relationship becomes less about love and more about survival. You're constantly trying to keep something alive that the other person isn't helping to protect. Many people stay in these situations because they're afraid of letting go. They think walking away means giving up. But sometimes walking away isn't quitting. Sometimes it's refusing to abandon yourself. There's a difference. If holding on requires you to sacrifice your dignity, your confidence, your peace of mind, and your self-respect, then the relationship is already costing you more than it's giving you. Don't measure your worth by how hard someone is willing to fight for you after you've spent months chasing them. Measure your worth by recognizing that you deserve someone who never made you feel like you had to compete for basic attention in the first place. That's where emotional maturity begins. It begins when you stop asking, how do I make this person love me? And start asking, does this relationship reflect the kind of love I deserve? Another important truth is this. The more you chase someone, the less opportunity they have to demonstrate their own effort. If you're always the one calling first, planning every meeting, starting every conversation, fixing every disagreement, and keeping the connection alive, how will you ever know whether they would have done any of those things themselves? Sometimes stepping back isn't about ending the relationship. It's about allowing the truth to reveal itself. You also need to stop confusing attention with affection. Someone may enjoy your company. They may enjoy your support. They may enjoy the comfort you provide. But enjoying what you give isn't the same as deeply valuing who you are. A person can appreciate your effort without ever being fully committed to you. That's why you must pay attention to reciprocity. Healthy love always finds a way to give back. Never let loneliness convince you to accept one-sided love. Loneliness is temporary. Losing your self-respect can leave scars that last much longer. Every time you ignore your own needs just to keep someone else comfortable, you quietly teach yourself that your feelings matter less than theirs. Over time, that becomes a dangerous habit. You begin settling for crumbs because you've forgotten what a full meal looks like. Strong people understand something that weak people often don't. Rejection is painful, but chasing someone who has already shown you they don't value your presence is even more painful. One wound heals with time. The other keeps reopening every single day because you continue placing yourself in situations where your heart isn't protected. Life has a way of revealing people's priorities without them ever saying a word. Watch where their time goes. Watch where their energy goes. Watch what they consistently invest in. Those things tell you what truly matters to them. If someone repeatedly chooses not to invest in the relationship while expecting you to keep doing all the work, don't mistake that imbalance for love. Love isn't measured by how much one person sacrifices while the other remains comfortable. The moment you stop chasing people who are comfortable losing you, something incredible happens. You create space for relationships built on mutual respect instead of constant uncertainty. You stop exhausting yourself trying to earn what should have been given freely. And most importantly, you begin treating yourself with the same kindness, loyalty, and commitment that you've spent so much time trying to give to someone else. That's when your confidence grows, your peace returns, and your heart finally understands that real love never has to be forced. It is shown willingly through consistent effort from both people. One of the greatest truths you'll ever discover is that self-respect is far more attractive than desperation. Too many people believe that love is something you earn by sacrificing your own needs, tolerating poor treatment, and constantly proving your worth. But that's not how healthy relationships work. The more you abandon yourself to keep someone else interested, the more you lose the very qualities that made you valuable in the first place. Self-respect isn't about acting cold or pretending you don't care. It's about caring enough about yourself that you refuse to chase someone who isn't willing to meet you halfway. When a man begins to ignore you, your first instinct may be to explain yourself, send another message, or find another reason to reach out. You tell yourself that maybe he didn't see the text, maybe he's busy, maybe he's stressed, maybe tomorrow will be different. And while life does get complicated sometimes, there comes a point where repeated excuses become a way of avoiding reality. Self-respect means accepting what someone's consistent behavior is telling you instead of creating stories that protect your hope. You have to remember this. The people who truly value you don't require endless reminders that you exist. They don't consistently leave you wondering where you stand. They communicate, they make an effort, they show consideration because your presence matters to them. Nobody is perfect, and every relationship has moments of misunderstanding, but there is a difference between occasional mistakes and consistent neglect. Self-respect allows you to recognize that difference without making excuses for someone else's lack of effort. A confident person understands that attention can be temporary, but respect has lasting value. Anyone can give you attention when it's convenient. Anyone can make you feel special for a weekend or during the exciting beginning of a relationship. But respect is revealed over time. It's revealed in consistency. It's revealed in honesty. It's revealed in how someone treats you when life becomes difficult, when disagreements happen, and when the excitement settles into everyday reality. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that if they just love harder, everything will improve. They become more available, more forgiving, more patient, and more understanding while receiving less and less in return. They think their extra effort will inspire the other person to finally appreciate them. But appreciation that only appears after you've exhausted yourself isn't genuine appreciation. Healthy love shouldn't require you to lose yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. Self-respect also means becoming comfortable with silence. You don't have to respond to every moment of disrespect. You don't have to defend your value to someone who refuses to see it. Every argument doesn't deserve your energy. Every disappointment doesn't require another emotional conversation. Sometimes your greatest response is simply refusing to participate in behavior that diminishes your peace. Silence isn't weakness. Silence is confidence that no explanation is needed when someone's actions have already answered your questions. Here's another lesson that changes everything. Stop measuring your worth by another person's ability to recognize it. Imagine holding a priceless diamond in front of someone who knows nothing about jewelry. If they fail to see its value, does the diamond become worthless? Of course not. Its value remains exactly the same. The only thing that's missing is someone's ability to recognize it. Your worth works the same way. Someone else's inability to appreciate you says more about their perspective than it does about your value. There will always be people who fail to see what you bring into their lives. Some will overlook your loyalty. Some will take your kindness for granted. Some will expect your love while giving very little in return. That's why your confidence cannot depend on other people's approval. If your happiness depends entirely on someone else's attention, you'll spend your life chasing validation instead of living with peace. Strong people know when to stop explaining themselves. They don't spend months trying to convince someone that they deserve respect. They don't beg to be chosen. They don't negotiate for basic kindness. Instead, they quietly observe, make wise decisions, and protect their emotional well-being. That's not arrogance. That's emotional maturity. It's understanding that your energy is too valuable to waste on people who repeatedly show you that your presence isn't a priority. Sometimes walking away feels frightening because you're afraid of being alone. But being alone for a season is often healthier than staying in a relationship where you're constantly questioning your value. Loneliness can pass with time. Living without self-respect creates wounds that become harder to heal. Every time you accept treatment that goes against your standards, you teach yourself that your own needs matter less than someone else's convenience. Never confuse self-respect with pride. Pride says, I don't need anyone. Self-respect says, I deserve to be treated with kindness, honesty, and consistency. There's a huge difference. Healthy relationships are built by two people who respect themselves enough to also respect each other. They don't compete for power. They don't manipulate with silence. They don't make each other beg for love. They understand that real connection grows through mutual effort, trust, and genuine care. As you continue through life, you'll discover that the relationships worth keeping are the ones where you never have to shrink yourself to be accepted. You never have to chase affection that should come naturally. You never have to sacrifice your dignity just to hold someone's attention. The moment you begin honoring yourself, protecting your peace, and refusing to settle for one-sided effort, you become stronger emotionally than ever before. And that quiet confidence has a way of attracting healthier people while naturally exposing those who were only interested as long as you were willing to ignore your own worth. That's why self-respect will always be more powerful than desperation, because the right people are drawn to those who know their value, while the wrong people are revealed the moment you stop begging for what should have been given freely. Your peace is one of the most valuable things you will ever possess, yet it's also one of the easiest things to give away without realizing it. Too many people wake up every morning checking their phone, hoping for a message from someone who has already shown them that they are not a priority. Their mood depends on whether that person calls, texts, or gives them attention. They allow someone else's inconsistency to control their emotions. But let me tell you something. The moment another person's behavior controls your peace, you've handed them a power they were never supposed to have. When a man ignores you, it's easy to believe that the answer is to fight harder for his attention. You think if you send one more message, explain your feelings one more time, or prove your love one more way, everything will change. But every time you chase someone who is pulling away, you sacrifice a little more of your inner peace. Instead of sleeping well, you're lying awake wondering what he's doing. Instead of enjoying your day, you're checking your phone every few minutes. Instead of living your own life, you're waiting for someone else to decide whether you're important enough to acknowledge. That isn't love. That's emotional captivity. Peace begins the moment you realize that not every unanswered question needs an answer. Sometimes silence is the answer. Sometimes distance is the answer. Sometimes someone's lack of effort tells you everything you need to know without them saying a single word. The mistake many people make is believing that closure always comes through another conversation. In reality, closure often comes through acceptance. You stop waiting for explanations and start accepting what consistent behavior has already revealed. One of the greatest signs of emotional maturity is learning not to chase certainty from people who continue creating confusion. If someone truly values you, they don't leave you constantly wondering where you stand. Healthy relationships may face challenges, but they should not leave you living in permanent anxiety. Love should bring security more often than fear. It should bring confidence more often than doubt. If every day feels like an emotional roller coaster because you're trying to figure out someone's intentions, then your peace has already been compromised. Many people believe that peace comes after the relationship improves. They tell themselves, once he starts calling again, I'll feel better. Once he apologizes, I'll finally be happy. Once he changes, everything will be okay. But that's a dangerous way to live because you've connected your emotional well-being to someone else's decisions. Real peace doesn't depend on another person's behavior. It comes from knowing who you are, accepting what you deserve, and refusing to let someone else's inconsistency define your happiness. Here's something important to remember. You cannot force someone to appreciate your presence, but you can decide how much access they have to your emotional world. That's your choice. You cannot control another person's actions, but you can control your response. Every day you choose whether to spend your energy worrying about someone who ignores you or investing that same energy into building a life that brings you joy, purpose, and confidence. The second choice will always lead to greater peace. Protecting your peace also means protecting your thoughts. Be careful about the stories you tell yourself. When someone becomes distant, don't immediately assume you're not good enough. Don't convince yourself that you're unlovable or that you somehow caused everything to fall apart. People's choices are shaped by many factors, and not all of them have anything to do with your worth. The moment you stop blaming yourself for someone else's lack of effort, you begin to free your mind from unnecessary pain. You have to learn that your value remains the same whether someone recognizes it or not. Imagine the sun hidden behind heavy clouds. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it has stopped shining. In the same way, your worth doesn't disappear because one person failed to appreciate it. Too often, people let rejection rewrite the way they see themselves. They begin doubting their beauty, their intelligence, their kindness, and their ability to be loved. But another person's inability to value you is not proof that you lack value. It's simply proof that not everyone has the wisdom to recognize what is standing in front of them. Peace also grows when you stop comparing yourself to other people. Sometimes after being ignored, people begin asking, was someone else better than me? Am I not attractive enough? What does she have that I don't? Those questions only steal your confidence. Comparison is a trap that keeps you focused on things you cannot control. Instead of comparing yourself to someone else, compare yourself to the person you were yesterday. Focus on becoming wiser, stronger, healthier, and more confident. That's a journey no one can take away from you. Another way to protect your peace is by creating a life that doesn't revolve around one person. Spend time with people who genuinely care about you. Invest in your goals. Learn new skills. Read books that challenge your thinking. Exercise your body. Strengthen your faith. Build friendships that encourage you. The more complete your own life becomes, the less likely you are to depend on someone else's attention for your happiness. Love should add to your life, not become the only thing your life is built around. Remember, silence isn't just about refusing to send another text. It's about refusing to argue with reality. It's about refusing to chase someone who has already shown you where their priorities are. It's about trusting that if someone truly belongs in your life, they won't require endless convincing to stay connected with you.